Welcome back to Market Headline. State-owned Enterprises Ministry plans to consolidate the Islamic banking business owned by associations of Indonesian state-owned banks. And the consolidations will be carried out through a merger process in February next year.
State-owned Enterprises Ministry plans to consolidate the Islamic banking business owned by the Association of State-owned Banks. The consolidation will be carried out through a merger process. The minister revealed that one of the objectives of the merger is to unlock potential financing in Indonesia, especially for future infrastructure financing. In early July, State-owned Enterprise Minister Erick Thohir detailed plans to merge the Islamic banks by February next year to provide more options to customers seeking Sharia-compliant funding. The state-owned Islamic banks in talks to be merged are Bank BRI Syariah, Bank Syariah Mandiri, and Bank BNI Syariah. Due to the merger plan, the Financial Services Authority Deputy Commissioner for Banking, Teguh Supangkat, said that in late July that the minister had not discussed the merger in depth with the agency. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Government has stated its plan to merge state-owned Islamic banks to unify power and grab high potential in Islamic funding and lending activity. So what are the Islamic banks to be merged and how large is it? So let's go to the next graphic. Here it is. Through the data, we can see that the state-owned Islamic banks in Indonesia, that is beyond the idea of government, that will be merged off. First of all, we can see Mandiri Syariah as the leading of the state-owned Islamic banks in Indonesia. Mandiri Syariah has spun off from its parent company Mandiri by November 1st, 1999, with a total asset that was listed on the financial statement by March 2020 within 114.74 trillion rupiah. And move on to BNI Syariah, which has spinned off from the parent company of BNI from June 19, 2010, not so long ago, by the total asset that was listed on the financial statement by March 2020 that worth 51 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the BRI Syariah, we can see that the spin-off went down for January 1st, 2009 with a total asset that is listed on March 2020 by 42 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the BTN Syariah, but still it's a strategic business unit of BTN, not have a spin off first, but within a total asset by March 2020 within 28.79 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at this asset and equity, it will be in the huge number of equity if we merge these four banks together, as the Ministry of State-owned Enterprises wishes on. And by looking at the existing data, we can conclude that the oldest and the largest SOE Islamic banks is Mandiri Syariah. But it doesn't mean that Mandiri Syariah will become a survival bank in the merger, because even though it has the largest asset and has existed for a long time ago, Mandiri Syariah is still not a listed company on Indonesia capital market. In fact, BRI Syariah has a company that listed companies, so it is possible that BRI Syariah will become a survival bank. But however, apart from that, if the merger is successfully executed in February 2021, there will be one Islamic bank with an asset value of more than 200 trillion rupiah, nearly 50% of the total assets of the Islamic banks throughout Indonesia. And so, apart from assets, what about the performance of the state-owned Islamic banks so far? The information is on the next graphic. Here it is. We can see the performance of Indonesia's Islamic SOE banks that I've previously mentioned about. First of all, let's take a look at the leading, which is a Bank Mandiri Syariah. We can see the revenue of the first quarter of 2020 reached nearly 2 trillion rupiah. And if we take a look at the net profit that was gained by the Mandiri Syariah, it reached 368 billion rupiah. Impressive number. And moving on to the Bank BNI Syariah, we can see the revenue whole in the first quarter of 2020 reached 1 trillion rupiah, but the net profit slightly lower than the Bank Mandiri Syariah's net profit, but still in the quite brilliant performance of 214 billion rupiah. And next, if we take a look at the Bank BRI Syariah, we can see the revenue that was posted by the company reached 960 billion rupiah, with a net profit in the first quarter of 2020 in the 75.15 billion rupiah. And the last one is the Bank BTN with a 584.91 billion rupiah revenue, and also the net profit of 74.8 billion rupiah. And if we take a look and assess from this whole graphic, Bank BTN is the least of the performance, and when we talk about the Indonesian's Islamic SOEs banks, but however Bank Mandiri is the leading one. And the performance of these Islamic banks was still sufficiently maintained in the first quarter of 2020. But however, as the pandemic hit Indonesia, the latest data shows that there were various performance achievements until June 2020. Even BRI Syariah recorded a depressed performance throughout the first semester of 2020. But even so, the General Chairman of Indonesia's Islamic Bank Associations, Tony Absubari, said that the Islamic banks stand to bear less risk during the COVID-19 pandemic when compared to the conventional banks. And from the performance side, we turn to response related to the Islamic bank merger. So let's go to the next graphic. So here it is, we can see several response on the Islamic SOE Bank's merger plan that was planned by the government. First of all, from BRI Syariah, as the compliance director, said that we fully support the plan as long as it is for the good of the economy and Islamic banking industry. And moving on to the statement from Bank Mandiri, the Deputy President Director of Bank Mandiri, which is Sir Harry Gunardi, stated that the aim of shareholders is to build a large bank so it helps Islamic banks to be equal. We stated this will be equal with the conventional banks to penetrate the market. So based on the response, we can see good responses from the main actors of these Islamic SOE banks merger plan. And basically, the management of the state-owned banks supports the government steps regarding the merger of Islamic banks. But at the same time, economic observer Peter Abdullah said that currently the number of Islamic banks is still relatively limited. So rather than conduct a merger, it is better to allow that state-owned Islamic banks to remain competitive and encourage the growth of Islamic bank. While this plan is still reaping pro and cons from various parties, so what are the challenges in this merger plan? So we can go to the next graphic to deep dive more about that. So here it is. We can see we just compiled biggest challenges on Islamic SOE banks merger. First of all, we can take a look by the questions of will the merger automatically increase the market share? The question is quite a bit tricky because according to the data, the latest data of the government stated that the market share of the Islamic banks in Indonesia is only around 6 up to 7% and remain stagnant into the upcoming years. And then the second one is that it needs an additional capital injections to be equivalent even to the book 4 banks. Because, of course, the Islamic banks need more equity assessment capital to be competitive enough with the conventional banks in these terms. And the third one is that market alignment requirements of all merged banks, and this needs a commitment to conduct it. And Islamic finance practitioners Irfan Shauki Baik said that the merger will not automatically increase market share because it does not increase the number of assets. Even after the merger, the performance will be even stronger and would likely penetrate 7 or 8 largest Indonesian banks. He also stated that this merger plan must be reviewed carefully and there is no need to rush in February 2021. It needs a thorough study so that the implementations does not harm Islamic banking as a whole. And viewers, we hope nothing but the best for government plans to conduct it throughoutly and accordingly so that it can support Islamic finance conditions in Indonesia. And viewers, stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back with more news coverage regarding capital market only on market headlines. So stay tuned.